Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
I'm redoing the intro. Sorry. What was that?
That sounds...
Would you just blow your nose?
It sounds like intro material to me.
Right.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, and Brian Murphy.
Welcome in. Jeff, Eric, and Brian here with you on this Wednesday evening here, Wednesday, September 9th. We're recording this show. Plenty to talk about as football, it doesn't even feel like football season's really started, but it has. I mean, here we are, guys. We're watching basketball playoffs. Baseball playoffs are just a little bit away. NHL playoffs are happening, and the NFL's about to start. We're embracing the weird, man. This is just a weird year.
Isn't this your equinox? Isn't this like the...
Oh, this is the longest. This is the longest sports equinox in history, is what we're aiming for right here, no doubt.
Murph, how are you handling watching Yankee baseball and the Lakers postseason at the same time?
Well, they're kind of going in divergent directions. So it's been quite a roller coaster if you're just watching those two teams.
Well, we're pretty used to that in June, but not in September. I mean, this is just weird. But we got lots to talk about here with football and UCF actually getting going. We're 10 days away from kickoff, guys. 10 days from Georgia Tech. Here we go.
I haven't even gotten my hotel room in Atlanta yet.
Yeah, you're a late starter, man. How about that? We've got we have basically the unofficial preview of football is what we're going to be talking about. Offense, defense, special teams. What are we expecting from some position battles? We're going to await, obviously what the coaches are going to say because they haven't been saying much of late. And, what more are we going to glean from them at that point? But just try to get you prepared as we head toward game week for Atlanta. We've also got some news on NFL guys in the UCF. The NFL rosters are finalized. Some surprises, some not so much surprises. And then also some news from soccer and basketball on the women's side. Some professional careers getting going for a couple of UCF women's soccer players and one UCF women's basketball alum. But we start with, we'll call this, our unofficial preview of UCF football this year in this bizarre year of years. We are right now going through our 5 biggest questions heading into 2020 for UCF. You can catch that at blackandgoldbanneret.com. Thanks to you, Murph, and to Drew for helping us out, for helping me out on some of that. And you guys have been great on that. Derek Warden making his text debut. This is really exciting.
He understands the current climate right now. It's not favorable to photographers, so you gotta adapt.
Look, man, COVID. You gotta make adjustments. You gotta make those halftime adjustments, like Randy Shannon, right? So, but check those out. We got 3 of them up, 2 more to go. Murph, I want to start on the offensive side of the ball. The big question that we asked this week is, what's Dylan Gabriel going to do for his sophomore year? We've compared. Drew compared, previous sophomore years or second years for several quarterbacks in UCF history. Obviously, it's a mixed bag, but we did see improvement significantly from Mackenzie Milton in his sophomore year, and there just is so much of a transition for every player at every position from your freshman to your sophomore year. So, what are you expecting to see from Gabriel this year as we enter into 2020?
I'm expecting to see a lot of the same. I think it's interesting how, for a guy who's a freshman to be thrown in there with such a low turnover rate, a good deep ball rate. He did things that usually freshmen just don't do at that stage. Certainly as true freshmen, and so he just seemed more poised than I think anybody could have possibly expected. And so I don't know if there's one major thing that he has to really clean up. And people will gripe and and whatever, because there's always things, but he doesn't have I don't think he has a major weakness right now, which is amazing to say as a sophomore. But I think I'm just interested to see how he sort of works in without Gabe Davis and, sort of gets other guys more targets. And then, how do you just basically work in your new receivers and your new weapons. But as far as Dylan Gabriel's concerned, I'm not looking well, he really needs to do this better this year. I think maybe I'm vamping for time as I try to think. I
can think of one thing.
I think it's okay, they want him to run more, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants him to run more. But he started doing that at the end of last year, and it was beneficial. I think people, look at the Pittsburgh game, and they're always going to bring that up about why didn't he run more in this game? I understand, yeah, I get it, but maybe he isn't, he's not going to be scrambling. He doesn't feel comfortable scrambling around 20 times a game. If that's not his bag, then I have no problem with that, because what he does when he's under control has been really, really good.
And that's the thing, he doesn't have to, though, in order for that to work. I just think that at times, especially when we saw earlier in the year, you mentioned the Pitt game, the Cincinnati game too was a little bit of this, where teams just dared him to sit back there and throw. And even if you just present the threat of the run, which, as you mentioned, he did in the second half of the season, that significantly opens up, I think, what Josh Heupel wants to do. You mentioned not having Gabriel Davis this year. That was one of our other questions. So who steps up in this receiving core? And that was what Derek Warden wrote about. And as great as Gabe was, an all-timer at UCF, I really do believe that. A lot of guys there are ready to just step up and deliver and deliver in his stead. And it's not just the names that we're used to hearing, for example, I think, we've all been looking forward to what Marlon Williams is going to do. Trey Nixon obviously is back, but, some of the other guys who are a little bit further down on the roster, including, guys like Jalen Robinson, who just transferred over from Oklahoma, and Kevon Ahmad and Amari Johnson, those guys are chomping at the bit too, aren't they?
And not only that, but then you go deeper with Josiah Cradle, the freshman stretch, they call him, another deep target, 6'4". And you've already seen him, if you follow UCF football on Twitter, they release some clips of their scrimmage practices and some of their photos. And what we've seen as far as photos and videos of Josiah Cradle is a guy who is working, getting a lot of reps with the first team offense at times. And so I think he's going to have a sizable role this season as well. They also want to move. They also want to make Jake Hescock more of a move tight end this year. Get him to realize that he has the he has the abilities to, not always be on the end of the line, but he can be in the slot and kind of move out down the seam. So yeah, I think I'm interested to see if there's going to be an alpha male in this wide receiver core, which Gabe obviously was. But if that guy doesn't emerge, I don't think it's a huge downgrade, because they just have so much strength in numbers with the possibilities here.
And that also brings me over to the running back situation too, where again it's just we've been seeing reports of some really interesting stuff happening in the running back core as well. Obviously, Greg McCray is back. Greg with a bit of an off year last year. Otis Anderson. His talent just speaks for itself, but. When you look at the backs, who are some of the other new names that you're actually looking forward to seeing some action from when things get going?
Well, granted, Greg McCray was hurt for a bit last year. I think that dogged him for last season.
Definitely.
And then the other two names that we've heard a lot of this year, we're always asking for who are the young guys who are standing out in camp, and the two names you hear often in the backfield are Demarius Good and Johnny Richardson. Demarius Good is now in his second year in the program. Josh Heupel has said he's a completely different player, much more committed. just much more knowledgeable of the system. But like it's just taking himself more seriously this year in a second year. And then you have Johnny Richardson, who looks like another one of those undersized track star running backs that UCF has had. We've had a few of them. And, he's 5'7", but he ran a 10.8 100-meter dash in high school. And everyone is saying he just looks electric. And as I know he's only a true freshman, so I don't know, as a true freshman with Otis and Greg here and Demarius Good standing out, and also Bentavious Thompson also still here. I don't know if Johnny Richardson's going to get a lot of run this season, but man, the future seems really bright for that kid.
Yeah, I mean, it's the speed, I think, is the thing that everyone is most excited about and most intrigued with out of the backfield. I was a little worried. Remember, we were worried last year about how much depth would UCF have at running back. Well, they seem to have alleviated that issue. I know we've touched upon the offensive line in past episodes, but just real quickly, with four guys gone from last year, Heupel has expressed his optimism at some of the guys who are moving in. Do you share that optimism right now? And has anything changed since that point?
No, I mean, I think we talked about it. Yeah, we did talk about it last week, but I think the offensive line is fairly settled as far as who your top guys are. Matt Lee, the redshirt freshman, is going to be your center. You have, I think, three guys who are worth starting at guard right away, but we'll find out which two of them are. It'll be either Cole Schneider, Parker Boudreaux, and Sam Jackson. Two of those three will start at guard. You might still see Sam Jackson line up at tackle. Sam Jackson's going to move around all over the line during the game. And then on the tackle spots, you've got guys like Marcus Tatum, the grad transfer from Tennessee, Ed Collins, who got quite a lot of run last year in his first year here, Josh McMullen coming back off an injury. They have options to tackle. Certainly they don't have Marcus Tatum is experienced, and from the SEC no less, but as far as experience in this system, you don't have a guy like a Jake Brown or a Wyatt Miller on the edge there anymore. But they have, I think, at least they have guys they can trust to put out there and some depth there. And again, I think the versatility that someone like Sam Jackson brings is so beneficial at times like this.
Yeah. That brings us to the other side of the ball in the defense. Go ahead, Eric.
I just want to chime in on the offensive line because there's a couple things there. Two things about the offense. I think there's a big advantage in seeing this in this year in 2020. The fact you have an experienced quarterback back with the same system, with the same core, I think is significant. Over the weekend you saw SMU with Shane Buechele struggle. They got a new offensive coordinator because their offensive coordinator last year, Rhett Lashley, left to be the new offensive coordinator at Miami. So, and I think there's some in a year like this where you haven't had the normal spring or normal summer, or even you could argue a normal fall. I think that's a factor with teams that are starting have new coaches or new coordinators or new quarterbacks. I think could be in some struggles, and I think that's a big advantage to UCF, a team that's got their quarterback back, it's got its nucleus back, and it's got its coaching staff. I know they lost, obviously, your quarterback coach went to Ole Miss, but at the end of the day, with all due respect, this is Josh Heupel's offense. So I really don't care who the quarterback coach is, to be honest.
Well, so what you're saying is that the most important part in a season that's already been through as much turmoil as we have, the more consistency, the better. And you're absolutely right.
Agreed. I mean, SMU has a new offensive coordinator, Garrett Riley, who's related to Lincoln Riley. So they're going to go through some growing pains. Now, I want to pick up on this on the offensive line. Murph, you brought this up because this is kind of for both of you here, is when UCF has won conference championships, they have had great offensive line play. And you see that in conference awards. I'm going to give you this kind of a factoid here. 2007, UCF won Conference USA Championship. Josh Sitton and Kyle Smith were first-team all-conference from the offensive line. 2013, the Magical Fiesta Bowl year, you had Justin and Jordan McCray, first-team all-conference. 2017, you had Jordan Johnson at first-team as well as Aaron Evans. 2018, you had Cole Schneider. Jordan Johnson and Jake Brown, all first-teamers in 2018. 2010, I know some are asking, what about 2010? They only had Ja Reed, who was a monster that year, but that team was led by their defense, so I don't think it's a fair comparison. My point is, this is for them to be successful and accomplish their goals. They got to get back to having great offensive line play, which I think we all admit was a little bit of a disappointment a year ago. Last year, only Jake Brown was first team all conference. The key, got to get multiple guys to play at a high level in that offensive line. Do they have that ability? And who do you think that could be? Do you have a prediction on that? Who could be that second guy, maybe a third guy that could be an all conference first teamer this year?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I love Sam Jackson so much. I can bring him up every week, and it's not just because of his versatility, but I think the fact is he plays really well at three different positions. He can play both guard spots, and he's played, I believe, as either right or left tackle last year in games, and I think he did all three like above average. And I just see him being like maybe probably not getting the publicity he deserves because he doesn't stick at one spot. He's sort of a utility guy. But he's so good at each spot, and in this season, it's a real luxury to have a guy like that. But I think also you're right, Eric, in that, like I said, there is no security. You know, like you can say like, oh, I trust this guy right away to fill in at tackle and be great. Like, yeah, we've seen some good things that Ed Collins and Josh McMullen a couple years ago. Marcus Tatum has a lot of experience in the SEC. It's great, but we haven't seen them like really be the man for a full season over at tackle. And I think that's going to be something that's going to be that's going to be something we watch every week. And then obviously, Matt Lee, I mean, they've basically anointed him as the starter at center after JJ was a starter for so many years and so good at his job. Now they're going to have a redshirt freshman in there, calling out the signals and making the snaps. And it's going to be, it may not be a smooth ride all the way, but I think I think they have guys that at least they trust.
Yeah, I'm with you, Murph, and I think I'm really interested to see obviously what Marcus Tatum, assuming that he's and they are projecting Marcus Tatum to be the starting right tackle, so that's Dylan's blind side. What's he going to look like? One thing about Matthew Lee, now, you know me, I've always been a believer that center is the second most important position in football behind quarterback, right? And we've been spoiled with JJ for all these years. But looking at Matt Lee, he was in a two-person competition with Eric Seidelman, who's a year older than him, and Matt Lee won the job, right? So that tells me, like you were saying, that the coaching staff trusts him. He's already been here for 1 year and has worked under JJ for 1 year. So that's another thing. I do have my concerns about, what's it going to look like when he's, when we're playing out there with live ammo and he's going to be making the calls and making things really quick. So, did he and Dylan Gabriel spend the off season, or did he spend his off season, getting prepared to run the offense at as high of octane as UCF wants to? And I think that in large part, I mean, if he's in this position, then the coaching staff must be satisfied that yes, actually, he has, and we're doing, and it's perfectly fine. So
it also helps that it's his second year in the system. He did get 4 games of action under his belt last year, and so I don't. And also he basically, was basically a mentor or a mentee, under JJ last year, which, I mean, that's a pretty good person to learn from. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a difference. And there's going to be some growing pains because you just imagine there will be, but it's going to be something we watch all year, and it is certainly the most uncertain part of this offense is the center and the 2 tackle spots. And again, they have guys they trust, and I think we know who's going to start at those spots, but that doesn't mean it's going to be like it has been in the past with guys like Eric mentioned who were all conference players.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. We're going to take a quick break in a second, but I want to talk first, just real quick before we do, about special teams. Anything that we can glean from this right now? Obviously, I think we're looking right now at Daniel Obarski as the place kicker and Andrew Osteen as the punter. Is that right?
Right, and Obarski is competing with Riley Stevens, who's a walk-on for the place kicking job, and Obarski will still handle the kickoffs. I would imagine Obarski wins both gigs, but it was brought up. I forget which coach talked about it. It might have been Heupel. They go, Obarski's been great. We just got to get him to kick the ball inbounds a little more often. Remember last year there were a slew of kickoffs that went out of bounds. We got it's. I'm sure they have harped on him well all spring and all camp that has to be fixed. It was mentioned to us. So I think you'll see Obarski in both roles, and then Osteen is the punter.
Osteen over Alan Curvin, I'm guessing. Is that right?
I would imagine so. Yeah, I have not heard anything about that.
Okay.
So I don't even know if that's a competition. I mean, everything's a competition because they're like, Dylan Gabriel, he's competing for the job too. Like, okay, fine, whatever. But I would imagine like Osteen is going to be your punter, and then you'll have Obarski kickoff and place kicking. But yeah, for what it's worth, they did talk up Riley Stevens as having a big leg, and so maybe that's something to watch. But it's hard to imagine a walk-on coming in and getting that job right away.
And regarding the kickoff thing, like you said, I don't think that people should take this lightly. I mean, I could hear fans right now being like, "Well, just kick the ball straight, don't kick it to the side." Well, when you're in coverage, right, when you're trying to get coverages, especially against teams that have really good return men, as we do have in the American, you are supposed to kick the ball right, kick the ball left to the numbers, outside the numbers, in between the numbers, and do so with accuracy in order to set up your coverage. And that's not easy. That's not easy when you're kicking that ball that far. So I think it was a rash of issues last year, but we're hoping. I mean, I think everybody's hoping for the sake of special teams that you're not giving away free yardage again, like they did last year. So, all right, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we'll talk about the defensive side of the ball and just the in general intangibles that are going into the 2020 season. What we're going to be looking for as we get ready for this odd season that technically has started, but not really. We're just kind of easing into it. Stick around. I'll be right back.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
We are back, the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff, Eric, and Brian with you here. Follow us on Twitter at UCF_Banneret, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. And of course, blackandgoldbanneret.com, where we are your home of UCF sports on the SB Nation Network. All right, I want to flip over to the defensive side of the ball here, Eric and Brian, because this is believe it or not, this is the side of the ball I'm most excited about because of the talent that's been coming back, even with guys who have opted out. I still think that this team is very, very talented, especially in the front six. We know that they run a nickel for the most part. I think everyone's expecting the secondary to be a strength this year, but with Tay Gowan now leaving for the NFL, and we still don't know about Bam Moore if he's going to be able to come back at all this year. To me, the center of gravity has switched to the front six, and especially on the pass rushing side. I think this might be as good a pass rushing team as UCF has had in quite some time, with Tremont Morris-Brash and Randy Charlton on the outside, Kenny Tournier, and then of course you have Eric Gilliard and Eric Mitchell patrolling in the linebacker slot, and those guys have been known to just cause havoc in front of the first down marker. But this defense, I really do believe, Murph, is not to be outdone here. What have you been hearing about that side of the ball?
Well, what they really want to get back to is something that they were really great at, really 2 years ago. Their third down efficiency and their tackles for loss. I mean, those two areas, they were fantastic a couple of years ago, still okay last year. But they really want to get back to that. Randy Shannon talked about that a couple weeks ago. Like, those are the things we have to do better this year. We have to get back to that. I agree with you, Jeff. I'm much more interested on the defensive side of the ball, not only because of the guys that they're trying to replace, but also the numbers and the possibilities that could be thrown out here. Like, yeah, they have Randy Charlton and Tremont Morris-Prash on the outside, but you could also see plenty of Stephon Zayas, which, again, if people watch closely in the spring in the fall scrimmage cut-ups that UCF football does for its social media accounts, you see a lot of Stephon Zayas on the first team defense. And so you got that. And then inside, we've heard a lot of good things about Cam Good, the second-year player who transferred over here last year. Noah Hancock is still here. Landon Woodson. I wonder how all these guys sort of get situated. And UCF's going to roll. They're going to roll 7 to 8 to 9 defensive linemen per game. So they're going to put in a bunch of guys. Also a freshman to watch for, a guy that Randy Shannon has touted this fall is Josh Telescar. So all those guys are going to be involved in this, and I think what they want to see them do more, and I know it sounds simple, but really what they want them to do more is just get in the backfield more often. They were really good that 2 years ago. They were still fine at last year, like average, but they really want to get back to that.
Who's going to be this year's Nate Evans?
So, are you talking about the linebackers or just defense in general?
Let's do both. Like the defense in general, kind of the overall leader, and then in the linebacking core, because we know that in Randy Shannon's defense, it's the linebackers are so important in terms of policing what goes on, in the short routes and everything. So I want to know who's going to play that role.
So I think Randy even spoke on this a couple weeks ago. He said we don't have a lot of vocal guys, and I don't think they do have like the vocal guy that's going to replace Nate's passion and urgency that he brought. I think the one guy who kind of does that the most is probably Richie Grant, the safety, the senior safety. He really was the guy, for UCF who was breaking down their pregame defensive huddles before games last year. Mm-hmm. And so he does have that role of being a team leader. At linebacker, the leader is Eric Mitchell. And he is the senior. He's got to have to lead regardless.
Redshirt senior. He's been here for 5 years too.
Yes, and he is not a boisterous guy. He just isn't. And I think that's fine as long as you lead by example. And I think Eric knows that. And we even asked him. I remember going back. We were talking to guys back in May and April, and I think he was asked, who is the leader on this defense, and can that be you? And he said, kind of unequivocally, he said, yes, of course, I'm going to be the leader in the humblest way possible. Like, he didn't want to brag, like, yeah, I'm that guy. But he knows that's his role now. It has to be his role, certainly among the top 5 linebackers that they've got. And I think they've identified who their top 5 linebackers are. And it's Eric Mitchell and Eric Gilliard, along with a couple of sophomores and Tatum Bethune and Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste. And then the freshman, Quade Mosier, who, and I think and Randy Shannon's talked about how he's been mixing and matching those guys, on either weak side, strong side, and sort of seeing what combinations work best. But those are going to be really, I think, your top 5 linebackers for this team.
Secondary, we touched upon it in a previous episode, but I just want to know, are there any developments on that side in terms of who's stepping in for Tay Gowan, and what do we know about Bam Moore?
So we don't know for sure. I mean, look, we'll find out on Monday when the depth chart comes out. I think that'll be one thing that I look forward to the most is who do they put at the second starting cornerback spot? Because we know we're going to have Zamari Maxwell at 1. Aaron Robinson will be the nickel. Who's the second guy? Is it going to be Corey Thornton, who's the 24/7 preseason true freshman All-American honors, or Justin Hodges or Quadric Bullard? But the point is, there's going to have to be a freshman that steps up here. That's going to be fascinating to watch because I think a lot of these guys have upside, but it's kind of like the 2021. It's like the new Madden game, like the new Madden 21 game. Like it's new and exciting, and I want to see it. But it could also have some massive glitches in it. Like it could be kind of rough. But that's going to be, they're going to have to be thrown into the fire early. As far as Bam Moore goes, no, it doesn't seem like he's going to play right away. He is not even practicing yet. Although, at least Randy Shannon has said that if there's one guy who has been the best leader on the defense, it's in this camp, it has been Bam, Brandon Moore. He says he's been in the quarterbacks' heads, making sure they know what their reads are, what their keys are, what the play is, the formations. He's really been kind of a coach off the field. I do think there is optimism that he'll play this year. I have no idea when that will be. And so that cornerback spot, the out wide corners with Zamari Maxwell and then a freshman to be named, it's going to be really, really interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be a crowded house back there. And I think that everyone does see that as sort of if there's a weak point right now in the defense, that's obviously it. Let me guess, we all know what the best case scenario is, at least right now for everybody, right? The offense is clicking, the defense does its bend but don't break thing, but even better than it did before, and UCF, makes a run, not just to a conference championship, but possibly. We've already seen a few previews, justifying what you said, Eric.
You know why?
The playoff talk is surrounding UCF now. All it took was half of college football taking the year off.
Well, and the national experts clearly listen to this podcast for their information, and UCF, rightfully so, because we're the only one that provide quality coverage of UCF athletics. So thank you, national media, for tuning in. But
I love it.
Look, with all that being said, and to Murph's point here, because I mean, it's funny you bring that up. There have been people that have been hitting me up saying, no, man, no way. We have no chance. I've gotten into arguments about it, and that's fair. And I do think there's that Murph has brought this up in the past. It starts with winning the conference championship. That's the most important thing because you can control that. You can't control if you get into the playoff or not. But last I checked, that there's still big paychecks if you win the conference championships and get into a big bowl. And in this era, that kind of helps. But to me, guys, for this team to win a conference championship and be in that conversation, my question to you, and I'll start with you, Murph, who is the top guy for this as far as the playmakers? Because when you look back at the UCF teams, you look at 17, obviously Shaquem Griffin. You knew he was the guy that could be the focal point of the team that, okay, I got to look at UCF defense. We got to worry about Shaquem Griffin. You look back to 2010, people worried about Bruce Miller, who was a defensive player of the year. They also had Kamal Ishmael in the secondary. 2013, it was Terrence Plummer and Jacoby Glenn. Glenn was the defensive player of the year in the league. Those guys were the biggest playmakers. Even 18, Murph, I think you agree, Richie Grant was a big-timer, and Nate Evans there. Last year, we didn't see that as much. I mean, Richie Grant was first-team all-conference, but I think you would agree that Richie wasn't as good by his standards last year compared to 18. Who is going to be that guy? Who is that next guy that people are like, man, we got to worry about that guy on the UCF defensive side in 2020?
I think – well, the guy that stepped up to me, the best player on this defense is probably going to be the nickelback Aaron Robinson, because I believe I think he's one of the best nickelbacks in the country. I don't think that's being too over the top. And so he has to make some plays and really kind of make up for the uncertainty that UCF has sort of at the out wide positions. So Aaron Robinson's a huge playmaker for me. Richie Grant, can he be the ball hawk again? Yeah, I know he didn't have the interception numbers last year that he had in 2018, but also he just dropped a few that he should have had. So I feel like those interceptions are going to come back. And then I think in the front line, I love Trayvon Morris-Brash and Randy Charlton. I think that duo is so good at getting after the passer. But I wonder, just again, looking at the way they've lined up for as little of what we've seen of fall camp and scrimmages, it seems like that Trayvon Morris-Brash is actually working more with the second team, and that you see a lot of Stephon Zayas with the first team. So maybe that's a guy that we should watch more, because he played a little bit last year, but it seems like they're really, really high on him. Well,
on the defensive line, Murph, is there a Jamarius Pittman in there or a Tristan Hill that could cause havoc in the line of scrimmage? Because, Jeff, you've mentioned this. With Pittman, maybe the most underrated player on that 2017 team, right? And that defensive line and really kind of holding things. Does UCF have that guy this year, I think is something to monitor and see how it develops.
Well, I think that's where Kenny Turnier and Noah Hancock have to step in. I think right.
So it's Tunier. It's okay.
Tunier.
And also, like, to be fair, we have heard at least 4 different pronunciations of Kenny Tunier's last name.
I know. I was talking with a couple of people, and it's changed, I think, twice in the last 3 years.
At the start, like, we were all good on Tunier, and then at the start of last year, it turned into Sunier. Like, they just cut the T out, they put an S, but now we're back to Tunier. Anyway,
I think Kenny's messing with us.
Eric, I don't know if they need that guy per se, because you're talking about a different defensive setup. So you don't need like a big nose tackle guy. In a 3-4 setup, which is what they had in 2017.
No, you're right. I agree. I mean more like a guy that's going to make sure that they don't get pushed around, because I think we saw that, Murph, especially in the Cincinnati game last year, and to some extent that Pittsburgh game, where they got pushed around at times. And I thought where Pittman made a difference in 17 is he wasn't going to get pushed around by the Auburn offensive line. Nobody was going to push that guy around. Or Tony Gerard, I'll give you another name there. Or, like I said, even Tristan Hill, who it was kind of unique because he didn't start, but that was a guy that you could argue made a big impact in the Memphis championship win and helping turning that game around. That's kind of what I meant, was not necessarily the line, just a guy that's going to make sure that they don't get pushed around, because you know that the opponent's strategy when they play UCF is to try to push them around, control the clock, keep the offense off the field.
I think if Cam Good plays with a mean streak, which he's definitely got, I think Cam Good can be that guy. Not like a huge space eater, but just a really dynamic, ferocious defensive tackle. He can be that guy. And I don't think we saw it enough consistently last year, and that's sort of why at times he kind of fell out of the rotation. Kenny Tunier is certainly the leader, but I don't know if he's that guy. He's more of a get up the field guy. He's like a defensive end playing tackle. But I think Cam Good could be that guy. I know Hancock is there as well, but maybe if you want a guy who's going to set the tone and say, like, we're here and we're not moving, like, Cam Good can be that guy. He's got the talent and the mentality to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, this front six, I think, is where the center of gravity is right now. And I think we're all hoping that the secondary, does sort itself out. I think everyone really is hoping and praying that, Bam Moore can come back sooner rather than later. But, you always make the point, Eric, it starts up front. Right? It starts with, do you make the other team, do you stuff the run, and do you make the other team's quarterback uncomfortable?
Correct, because that's what makes the difference between the elite teams and the good teams is the line of scrimmage. Everybody's going to have skill position players. It's up front, and that's what made the 17 team so special. Yes, they had all this talent in the perimeter and the secondary and Mike Hughes, but guys like Pittman made a big difference up front. I'll never forget in the Peach Bowl, and you both were there. One of the keys to the game was UCF didn't let Auburn push them around. They held their own and to some extent outplayed them. And I think to a lot of extent, I think Josh Heupel took a lot from that LSU game. The LSU game, UCF got pushed around. And I think Josh has been recruiting since, put an emphasis for that not to happen. And I think it'll be interesting to see how that develops. I think the other thing that's important to talk about, it's so benign, but yet I think in a year like this is so critical. Tackling. I know we talk about tackling, but in a year like this, and we saw this on Labor Day night for those in Navy and their lack of tackling.
Oh boy, Navy completely forgot how to tackle in that game. I've never seen anything like that.
Well, and to credit to Ken Niumatalolo, took full responsibility, but it's a unique situation because they had no physical contact in practice because they're trying to be safe during a pandemic. So I think tackling for defenses is going to be so critical this season because you probably haven't had a lot of rep as far as physical contact or if you're keeping social distancing and things like that. Tackling, especially early in the season, I think is critical for this group. And I think, and I remember a couple years ago, there were times where they struggled tackling-wise. Last year, I thought they improved on that. So hopefully they could stay improved because I think that's a big factor this year across the country as far as tackling is concerned, especially early in the year.
Yeah, it's going to be tackling and it's going to be depth. Depth is going to be key. Not just because God forbid something happens and some guys get knocked out of games for contact tracing or whatever, but with what we saw with Navy, with the lack of preseason, with a different preseason. These guys are all creatures of habit, man. With a different kind of preseason, stamina and conditioning is going to be key. And
can I mention also about depth?
Yeah,
we heard. I don't know if this has been done before with UCF, but we heard from Randy Shannon a couple weeks ago that that they're playing Richie Grant at corner sometimes. And I mean, like that's sort of what you got to do, because let's say there's something that, because of a guy tests positive for COVID, and you do contact tracing, and all of a sudden you lose like 3 corners. Well, then you're really down on your luck. And so they're trying guys out at different positions. Now, I would love to know who else is playing different positions, or who else is playing on maybe both sides of the ball, because I think you've got to plan for that this year. We've heard about guys playing both safety and corner, both nickel and safety. I think it's hilarious that Richie Grant, as a senior, is gonna lining up at corner. In practice, we even saw Richie running wide receiver drills in their fall scrimmage clip.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that clip too on the Twitter account, which I thought was hilarious.
And again, like that's all we get. So for those of you who like really want us to like break down what's going on in camp, we don't know other than what they show us.
I think personally, I think Richie just got lost out there, and he was like, "I'll do this for now."
let me ask you this, guys. Could Richie Grant be the Gabe Davis of 2020? And what I mean by that is a guy that he's good going into the year, good heights, but then he explodes, and then by the end of the year, you're like, man, this guy's not only going to get drafted, but he's going to get drafted pretty good. Could Richie be that guy that by the end of this season, we're like, wow, this guy is definitely going to be drafted in the NFL, and he's going to be the next great defensive back at the next level? Could he be that candidate, or do you have somebody else in mind?
Of course he could be. We saw it 2 years ago. Yeah, remember going into last season? Into last season, there were some 2020 mock drafts that had Richie as like a late first, early second rounder. He was a top 50 player on some boards. So we've seen it, and so I think he definitely could have a huge season. And I want to mention too, since we've mentioned so many names, we should mention Antoine Collier, who no matter what he does will always go down as the guy who clinched the Peach Bowl.
Yep.
But he is still starting back there. Another guy they're going to really have to lean on in that secondary with the cornerbacks being so inexperienced. It's good they at least have a lot of experience over at safety with Grant and Collier.
Before we finish up, I wanted to go back and just and look at the other side of special teams with the return game, because again, Otis Anderson is expected. I would imagine is expected to return punts again. What do we know about the return game? Because of course it's going to be so critical. And there were some holes in special teams last year, like we talked about, not just with the kick coverage, but we felt like UCF was not quite as explosive in the kick return game as they could have been at times, although the Pitt game notwithstanding. But what are we expecting from that side of special teams as well?
Well, you talk about in the kick return, you're basically losing Adrian Killen. So how do you make up for that? And I actually asked this to Anthony Tucker, the running backs coach, a while back. He said that they didn't want to do that to Otis. And I think we've talked about this, although he did say that Otis could play cornerback if he wanted to. Again, something to watch.
What?
I love this. This is great. Are we like arena football, two-way players here? I love it.
This is like the 1950s. It's really wow.
I mean, I don't think. Again, it would take something disastrous.
I was going to say let's hope that doesn't happen, because if we start seeing Otis Anderson playing both ways, I'm thinking something went horribly wrong.
Although I got to say, we are the same program that had Brandon Marshall and Mike Sims-Walker playing the defensive side of the ball for a full season.
Yes,
starting,
but that was
right?
because something went horribly wrong, like I was saying. I'm sorry, Murph. Go ahead.
We do know that guys like Amari Johnson and even Marlon Williams were catching punts in spring ball. And I think I mentioned earlier on an earlier podcast that I think Jalen Robinson could be a kick return guy. Johnny Richardson could be a kick return guy. Again, like, how do you replace Adrian Killens on kick return? I don't know. Put a guy who's a 5'7" running back with sprinter speed back there. Like, oh, they got one of those.
Who's the fastest guy? Just put him back there.
Whatever. So they have options again. I think that's like the the takeaway from all of this is like they have options. Like what the title is, like they have options on this team, and now it's about like finding who fits best. But yeah, those are some guys. I think Jalen Robinson would be great on kick return. But I would love to see him like be like a third or fourth wide receiver in this offense and just torment like safeties and nickel corners. I think that'd be fantastic too.
Stop, man. We're getting greedy now.
By the way, so hold on. I'm still kind of pausing here. So Otis, what did they say about him in the defensive side of the ball again?
So because I asked Coach Tucker if they were going to put Otis on kick return because he's already doing so much. Yeah. This is, by the way, it's back in spring. This is back when this was like late February. So it was like 10, 15 years ago, it seems. But he said that Otis, if he wanted to, he could go play corner and do it well. That's what Tucker said.
This is great. This could be like a Heisman campaign. Play him on offense, a little bit in corner, a little special teams.
Are you saying the Otis Anderson is this generation's Gordy Lockbaum? Play both ways and
help us lead into the playoffs. I mean, I like the marketing potential of this. This is great. I'm excited.
Otis is my sleeper pick for Conference Player of the Year. I will put that out there.
By the way, this is the line because I asked Anthony Tucker, the running backs coach. He says, if we put Otis back there, maybe we put him back as the kick returner, he'll be as good as anyone in the country. But we can't play him in every position. But he could probably play corner also, or he could play the nickel.
He can't play every position, but we might have to try.
Can he be the breakout guy on offense? We've talked about Richie maybe like being the best. I mean, Richie, you could argue, is the best pound for pound best player on this roster. Could Otis at the end of the year be that offensive guy that we're like, wow, this guy is just taking it to a different level? Could he be that candidate on offense or special teams for that matter?
I think that's certainly in play. Go ahead, Murph. I'm sorry.
I think Otis is already broken out. Like he's such a known commodity. I think he is. We know what he is. I'm more interested to see. Again, Jalen Robinson. I love him. I'm really interested to see what Jacob Harris does because Jacob Harris last year, and it showed, was really raw as a wide receiver and really had problems at times tracking balls downfield over his head. Wasn't a great route runner. We've heard that he's worked really, really hard and has gotten some good results off of the work he did in spring ball and on his own time during the summer. I want to see if he's progressed at all out wide. And we haven't even mentioned Trey Nixon. I mean, there's so many.
We're sorry, Trey, if you're listening, man. We're really sorry. We're not disrespecting you here, Trey.
Could be the leading receiver by the end of the year.
Could be. Really, I think like it's weird to call him a breakout, but like Marlon Williams is the guy that everybody wants to see break out.
Yeah,
I think you got a glimpse of that in the bowl game when he pulled away from Marshall for a long touchdown. They want to see more breakaway long plays from Marlon Williams, something that he was kind of getting teased about by his teammates during the season. And now with Gabe going, I know Trey is there. But I think people really expect Marlon to be the guy that takes the biggest step up from last year.
Yeah, I think.
Ready? Let's go. Let's play right now.
I know. Let's go.
What are we waiting for?
Marlon, I think is most interesting because to me he strikes me as more of like a physical guy. Like you could see him as like a running back that got moved to receiver. I think that's what excites me about him. Like I'd love to see him get out there on some wide receiver screens and see how many guys he can run over because. He really is a physical presence out there. It's really exciting to watch. And, of course, we saw the speed in the bowl game. So, all right.
I don't want – yeah, go ahead, Murph.
He's 6 foot 225. I mean, he's a big dude.
That's a back. That's a back out there, right? I mean, if you put him at tailback, it's like, look out.
Listen, I don't want to wait till September. I know it says September 19th we got to play Georgia Tech, but they're going to be in the state of Florida this Saturday. They're going to be in Tallahassee. I say we drive up there, cash in, and just play right there and then, all right? Let's go. We'll take them both on the same time. Let's go.
Yeah, of course you would say that, Mr. Florida State up here. Oh, God. All right. I know why. You want us to get another shot at Mike Norvell. That's what you want.
Has that not worked out for us in the past or what? Huh?
Fair point. All right. All right, so that was our CliffNotes preview of UCF football, at least as of right now.
2-0 in 1 week. 2-0, baby.
Murph, what's the next thing that we're going to be looking forward to? Obviously, you mentioned the depth chart coming out, and then we're going to hear from some coaches and players next week. Is that right?
Yeah, actually, we're here for a couple coaches tomorrow, Thursday. Actually, we're talking to William Martinez, the secondary coach, for the first time in fall, and that's going to be interesting because we get to ask about all the defensive backs, which we kind of ran through a lot of the questions there. Also, because he's a secondary coach, maybe he knows if, again, more guys we haven't mentioned. But is Devad Wilson, is he eligible? Do we know yet that he's eligible? Because we don't know that. I would like
sounds like your favorite new game show. Is he eligible?
Is he eligible? So Devad Wilson, who could, the transfer from Georgia, who could also be another big player in the secondary at corner. Jaden Francois. Are those guys eligible to help out in the secondary this year? I know people have been asking me, and we haven't gotten any answers. Maybe when we talk to Willie tomorrow, he will find out. I would say even if he doesn't know, I wouldn't fret. I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. There are commonly times where guys won't get their waiver to play until the week of the game. So it doesn't matter to me when they get it, as long as they get it before the game kicks off. Also, we've talked a lot about the depth chart. I do want to mention that it's going to be great when it comes out, and we're going to go all over it, and we're going to talk about it a lot. It usually doesn't mean a single thing after week 1 because UCF does not update its depth chart at all. So things are going to change without us knowing without us looking at the depth chart from week to week. We just got to sort of find out as the game goes unfolds. But so don't get wrapped up in the depth chart week 1. That's what it's going to be. It's going to change week 2, and then we just won't know about it until the game starts.
All right. Well, there's that CliffNotes preview that we've been looking for this entire time. So, Murph, once again, and Eric, thank you so much for what? What happened now?
It felt great. It just felt great.
I thought you said, "Oh, great." I was like, did something just happen on Twitter that we need to talk about now?
No.
They're not eligible. We just found no. Hopefully not. All right. Hopefully we'll find out about that, like you said, next week. So, we're just gonna have to embrace the weird, man. It's gonna be I keep saying it's gonna be one of those years. This is not one of those years. This is just this year. There's no way to really say it. So, all right, take a break. We get back for some news from outside of football, namely the other football. When we return, this is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff, Eric, and Brian with you here. Moving on to some pro news on the women's side of UCF athletics. 3 pro careers getting started for some UCF alumni. First of all, on the women's basketball side, Siani Martin has signed to play in Portugal. She will suit up for Basquete Clube de Barcelos in Portugal. So congrats to Siani. Of course, she's from Philly. And will be heading overseas. So solid player for a number of years and was a really excellent, I thought, vocal leader on the team last year. She was a lot of fun to watch, and as great as KK Wright is, it's a team effort. And Siani, probably was talented enough, I thought, to shoulder some of the scoring load, but instead took the backseat as sort of that second point guard and was an excellent defensive player, too. I think very underrated. So congrats to Siani. We're really proud of her. And also, congratulations to, from women's soccer, Zandy Soray and Carrie Lawrence. They have signed pro contracts with the Orlando Pride, and according to UCF, they will join the team for the duration of the NWSL Fall Series. So now Carrie was waived by the Pride just before the Challenge Cup, which was the return to play tournament that they had. She had signed in January, didn't make an appearance. Zandy comes on board and did play for her under 17 and under 19 teams and the senior national team for Belgium, but is staying in the States to play professionally, and they join Kanya Plummer, who is with the Pride right now. So 3 UCF alumni on the Orlando Pride as the NWSL heads into the fall phase of its season. So that should be a lot of fun to watch. And congratulations to them, too. That's big.
That's really big. I did not know that news with Zandy. Happy for her. She has a great story, background, has battled injuries. And, boy, it's good to see her get an opportunity with the Pride. You mentioned Martin there, Jeff. We know about the men's basketball, and there are kind of a lot of guys have had success overseas. The women quietly have had some players have success overseas. Zai Lewis, you remember her? She's been playing in Greece and has played in Finland. Z Saunders, remember that great transfer there, point guard there for a year? She's been playing at Sweden and Poland. And then Sydney McDonald, who played in Romania. Kayla Thigpen has been playing in Great Britain. So, it's a global game, people. There's a lot of places to go and make a living now. You don't have to just play in the States, and especially in women's sports where I've taught, we had Alini Reyes, the UCF Athletic Hall of Famer. She's playing over in Europe, soccer-wise, where they're paying more than they do here in the States. And in some leagues in overseas in women's basketball, it's the same case where you make more money. So awesome for Siani, who's really brought some great shooting to the team. And I look forward to maybe we might hear something soon about KK Wright and her future as far as playing basketball. That's the one I keep waiting for to see where she may end up deciding to play.
No, you're right. And going off of that too, like you said, Eric, it's good to see them get UCF alumni getting those chances to play overseas and make money. And it's good that they're getting the better offer, that they're taking the best offer that they can. However, I think we both agree that the women's pro leagues here in the States have got to step up and keep talent home, I think, and in soccer and in basketball.
It's been an ongoing issue there, and obviously the WNBA they almost had a strike about it. It's been an ongoing thing. It's hard. It's difficult to kind of give a simple answer.
It's hard because of supply and demand. But something. I'm hopeful that as MLS continues to grow, and we know how closely tied NWSL and MLS are in terms of many of the franchises. Of course, the Pride and the in Orlando City are one of several franchises where they have both the women's and the men's side, which is common in Europe, right? I mean, you do see you see these soccer clubs where they have a men's and a women's side, and I hope that we see more financial support for the women's game in the States, because we would like to see these players continue to stay here, and especially the WNBA. If they can get more teams, or maybe even like a small their version of the G League, I think that could be beneficial in trying to keep talent home. By the way, if you're wondering where can I watch the Orlando Pride, Eric Lopez, get this, Saturday, September 19th, okay? Same day as the UCF Georgia Tech game, but 1 p.m. Pride at the North Carolina Courage in Cary, North Carolina. You can see 3 UCF alums on CBS.
Wow!
CBS Saturday,
baby.
Saturday, September 19th. So check out some women's soccer. Orlando Pride. Cheer on your fellow Knights. 3 of them on that team, and then when the game is over, flip over to ESPN for UCF and Georgia Tech. That's going to be that'll be a nice Saturday for everybody.
That's very weird. I'd rather watch that than watch any Sunbelt or Conference USA football team. So
I am with you on that.
My problems.
I am with you on that. The Pride, let's see, they're going to have a couple of games on CBS and CBS Sports Network. They had October 9th. They'll be on CBS Sports Network. So
I agree with you. They got to step up, and that's the league in particular that really needs to step up, because there is interest in women's soccer. They drew good ratings when they were in the bubble. We talk about the NBA and the NHL. You're seeing, that they had a successful bubble themselves in Utah. They were the first league to come back, and they drew good numbers on CBS. And I think that's why CBS has gone ahead and picked up some of these regular season games here, because they did better than probably CBS thought they could do.
Yeah, and not just that, but I think we've talked about this before. They executed that bubble extraordinarily well, and it started. I hate saying it, but it's true. It started with the Orlando Pride getting kicked out of it because of the situation with a couple of players going out and partying and exposing themselves to the virus. Right.
Same thing with the MLS. They kicked out 2 teams, right? Nashville and Dallas, FC Dallas went from the bubble here in Orlando. So that was smart on both sides to do that. And I'm all for it, and I'm excited. I'm glad you told me that. I did not know that. I'm excited. I'll definitely tune into to see them because I always enjoyed seeing Sandy Saray play and Plummer. They're reunited together. Obviously, played last year at UCF, and to go alongside Lawrence, that's pretty good. Good move for Orlando. Can we get Orlando City now to bite and get some UCF guys?
I know, man. I know. We get Memphis 901 went and got Cal Jennings. I mean. Yeah. That's a missed opportunity, Orlando City. You can do better.
Just wait until our
Lord knows you needed to score some more goals in that final in the bubble in Orlando. I mean, Cal could have gotten you some instant offense.
Yes, try to get Cal. Don't get any of our current guys until after the spring, though. That's my please.
Yeah, right. Murph, baseball news. Our boy Dylan Moore, American League MVP candidate Dylan Moore, is back and better than ever, isn't he?
Jeff, it just warms the cockles of your heart to see Dylan Moore continue to come back from his wrist injury.
Not just continue to come back, but mash, man. What a year. Oh, my God.
The man hit a home run 2 days ago that traveled 425 feet at about 107 miles per hour and got 22 feet off the ground. That is what we like to call a laser. And also, I'd like to mention, in that same game in which Dylan Moore homered, I forgot who they were facing. This is a couple days ago. He became the first UCF alum to drive in 4 runs in a Major League Baseball game.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's done it.
That's okay. Now that's a great trivia question right there.
But did he come in relief and pitch?
No, he did not pitch.
Oh, then talk to me when he does that.
Well, then, can't win them all.
In all seriousness, though, Murph, I mean, I know it's a shortened season, but if there was an all-star game this year, would Dylan Moore be an all-star?
I mean, once you count like the guys who don't want to play, guys who are hurt, maybe he'd be like a alternate. Probably not. He might. I mean,
that breaks my heart.
Borderline.
Who would be the Mariners' representative? I mean, who would?
Let me put it this way. He's this year he's hitting .284 with 6 homers and 14 runs batted in 108 total plate appearances. He's 27-95 at the plate in 26 games. So 27 hits in 26 games. So I refer back to Eric's question. Who would be the Mariners' representative over him?
Probably Kyle Lewis, who looks like your American League Rookie of the Year right now, possibly. Kyle Seager's had a resurgent season. Dylan Moore has had a very good year, but he's probably not the first pick off of that team. But again, could he get in as an alternate? Yeah, I could see that happening. Again, we're talking about things that don't happen.
All I know is Dylan Moore single-handedly has got the Mariners within 2.5 games of the Yankees. If you would have said that before the year, that'd be a lock for MVP. Okay, that's all I got to say.
Again, it's been fun to watch him go, and then also across the sea, our boy Ben Lively, whom I really have stopped following on a daily basis because Major League Baseball.
Previous guest on the show, by the way, we interviewed him from South Korea exclusively here on the Banneret.
Friend of the show and international guest of intrigue, Ben Lively. Go ahead.
Friend of the pod. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Ben Lively just turned in the best start of his season a few days ago against the NC Dinos. The Dinos are the best team in the KBO. And Ben Lively went out and threw 7 shutout innings with 1 walk, 3 hits, and 8 Ks back on September 6th. So it's been a rough year for Ben. It was a bad luck year, and then it was an injured year, and then he came back and he had some pretty rocky outings. But if there's one thing he can hang his hat on, it was 3 days ago he shut down the best team in the league for 7 innings.
We'll take it, man.
There you go.
What a workman, man. I mean, going overseas, everything that's gone on. I mean, I would love to have Ben on the show again, just to talk, when the season's over, just to talk about how this whole experience has gone. I mean, we had him in the middle of the season, but I mean, what a journey. And it just goes to show you how, we love talking about these guys. I know we just got done with the football preview. Every podcast in the world at college sports does a football preview, right? But I just love these sports. These guys who are just chasing the dream, and gals, I should say too, just continuing to chase the dream. Ben Lively, Dylan Moore. The dream looks like it's coming true. All the way. We talked about Siani Martin and the two soccer players. So Kerry Lawrence and Zandy Story.
We didn't even bring it up. I don't even know if we did we bring up Chad Brown going overseas. He's going to go play overseas.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we didn't bring up Chad Brown. That's right. Yeah.
Aubrey Dawkins is going to go play in Germany.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're finding these opportunities. I wonder how many of them would have stayed in the G League, because obviously Chad was in the G League. He had that 1-year deal with the Texas Legends, and then was scheduled to be in the basketball tournament, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that didn't work out, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I'd love to see more of these guys staying home. Now, there's one last thing that we have to go over, and I think we'll be talking about this, and we'll wrap up with this, is the NFL rosters are now set. Can you believe the NFL is starting? We're recording this on Wednesday, September 9th. The NFL season is less than 24 hours away.
Heck yeah.
Can you believe that, man? Unbelievable. The rosters have been set because we had final NFL cutdown day. Some surprises and not so much surprises. Obviously, nothing new to report in terms of guys who've made teams. Bruce Miller did make the Jaguars, so that's good. A.J. Bouye is still in Denver. Obviously, Gabe Davis, Brashad Perriman, Jordan Akins, Charlie Hewlett, all back with their respective teams in the AFC and the NFC. Shaquille Griffin, obviously.
Whoa.
What?
Brashad Perriman's not back with his respective team. He just joined the Jets.
Well, no, of course. He just yes. Thank you. Yes, he just joined the Jets and obviously made the made the team through the through camp, which obviously we were expecting. Tristan Hill is again back with Dallas.
He's going to start,
and he's going to start. Yeah,
tackle.
They're going to give him a shot. We knew it would happen. He's got the talent to do it. Matt Prater back for another year in the NFL with the Detroit Lions. Of course, there was a little bit, Murph, wasn't there a little bit of worry around Traquan Smith in New Orleans this offseason?
I don't know, because they have Emmanuel Sanders now, and they thought Emmanuel Sanders. I don't think there was I really think.
I think it's more long term. I think it's more about the season.
Yeah, maybe.
This is a big year for Traquan. Maybe long term.
I was gonna say that. And so I'm going to write about this too for the site on tomorrow before the games start. I'll go through each of the 13 UCF players who are on active rosters in the NFL and sort of break down what's expected of them this year, and I'll also mention the 3 players who are on practice squads. And we're not even going to mention DJ Killings, who is on the Raiders and probably would have made their team as a defensive back, but opted out last. But it's a big year for Traquan. It's his third year. Which traditionally, in recent years, it doesn't really matter how old you are. You can come in and be great at the NFL level right away as a wide receiver. But traditionally, as wide receiver, third year is supposed to be your breakout year. I don't know if he's going to see the reps and targets to have that, but they need to see him, at least show some promise.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mike Hughes is back also from the injury, right? As far as at least in Minnesota, they're expecting him to contribute this year?
Contribute. He's the top guy in their cornerback group because they got nobody else. All they got was Mike Hughes and a bunch of rookies or cast-offs.
Now that takes us to the second part of the equation. One of the guys who's suspiciously absent, Neville Clark. What have we learned from that? Because not only was he waived by the Vikings, he wasn't even picked up on the practice squad, and nobody else picked him up. That's a shocker.
It was absolutely shocking to me because I had followed basically the Eagles, the Jaguars, and the Vikings closely this preseason and really during the summer because I wanted to see what the chances were that Adrian Killins, Nate Evans, and Neville Clark would make those teams. And Nate Evans, although he got cut, was picked back up by the Jaguars and put on their practice squad. Adrian Killins put on the Eagles practice squad. But now you've got Neville Clark. And yes, he went undrafted just like those other 2 guys. But he was a preferred UDFA signing by the Vikings. They gave him $115,000 guaranteed up front as a signing bonus, which is a lot of guaranteed money for a UDFA player. He's coming into a cornerback group that lost 3 guys to free agency this offseason, and then, is really kind of putting things together with rookies and cast-offs. And then also, we had heard really positive things about Novell's work in camp. He was doing really well during practices, getting a lot of pub from the beat writers. So it looked like there were a lot of people who were making their roster projections for the Vikings, and he was probably going to be like their 6th corner. They were probably going to keep 6 corners, and he would be their 6th guy. And then comes cut day, which was this past Saturday, and we hear from Novell's father, Norman Clark, who is just a fantastic UCF fan, that Novell has been waived. And I think that was surprising to me because of everything we had heard about Novell in camp and the need for expansion in that cornerback group. Well, then we figured, obviously once he's off waivers, after 24 hours, he'll either get re-signed onto their practice squad or someone else will claim him or sign him or something will happen. Well, 24 hours goes by and nothing happens with Novell. Nate Evans re-signs with the Jaguars practice squad. Shaquem Griffin is back with the Seahawks on their practice squad, but nothing happens with Novell. We hear that the Vikings don't want him back, according to people who are reporters in that market. And then all of a sudden, that tweet that Norman Clark sent out, notifying everybody that Novell had been waived, gets deleted. He deleted that tweet, and he has not tweeted since. It's been almost, it's been 5 days now, and we have no idea what's happening with Novell. So, something has obviously happened because there's no reason to think that they just didn't want him or that no other team wanted him. Something has obviously happened, either off the field or something else that is keeping him from having a job in the league right now. We don't know what it is, but it certainly is suspicious.
Yeah, we need Norman to reach out to us via DM and be like, "Hey, what's going on here? What happened with Vel out in Minnesota?" You did mention the 3 practice squad guys that are out there, and in this particular year, that is a particularly good thing because the practice squads, first of all, are expanded because of COVID, and also you get the feeling that these guys are going to get some run, in a game at some point this year, right? Nate Evans, initially released by the Jaguars, brought back to their practice squad. That's a good thing. Adrian Killens, I was surprised that Philly actually initially waived him and then brought him back to the practice squad. I thought he would have made the team. But the big surprise was Shaquem Griffin, that the Seahawks initially waived him and then immediately brought him back. What was the story behind that? Was it just a numbers game, or is there some competition ahead of him now?
Yeah, I didn't really look into the linebacking core of the Seahawks, but it might have been a numbers game. I mean, really, it's more of a special teams thing, right? Like, even if their linebacker core was flushed out with guys, like he could have found a spot on like as a gunner or on the kick coverage team. I don't know that. I don't know what the Seahawks plan is there, but at least they brought him back. It's kind of as it should be. You'd like to see him and Shaquille on the same team yet again. So at least, and like I said, Jeff, there's a high likelihood that at some point these guys will see some regular season action for one reason or another. So yeah, at least they're in the league. They are in the league. They're earning pretty decent money. Like, you should go see how much money the practice squatters make. Like, it's pretty good money for guys.
Decent money, yeah.
Yeah. So they're not on the active roster, but I don't think they're complaining much.
Well, but I'll say this real quick about Seattle, because I did look into that. They kind of added some guys in that linebacking position. For example, remember they drafted Jordan Brooks out of Texas Tech at linebacker. So they do have more depth now at linebacker, and that might have been part of the reason. And I want to ask you both this, because I think this goes into the last question I have, which is, which UCF NFL story is the most intriguing story of 2020? Because for me, it's Shaquille Griffin. He's in a contract year now. He's in his final year of his rookie deal with Seattle. He's going to open the season at Atlanta, so he's probably going to be covering either Calvin Ridley or Julio Jones. But I do wonder, this is a big year for him to get, that next big contract, whether it be in Seattle or elsewhere. And Seattle's been a franchise that isn't necessarily just going to hand out money. They let Jadeveon Clowney walk. They've let Richard Sherman walk. They've let Cam Chancellor got beat up. Some of that is because of age and things and the cap. But I think this is a big year for Shaquille, and to see if he's a part of Seattle's future and if he can take that next step in the cornerback position. Otherwise, both Griffins could be looking for a home next season. I think that's the number one storyline that I'm interested in from a UCF NFL version. What's your thoughts on that? Do you guys have a storyline that you're looking forward to seeing?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. My big story is Bruce Miller. Hasn't played in the NFL since 2015. Was brought back in after 4 years out of the league. Made the Jaguars roster as their fullback. And it goes back to, sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? We've talked at length many times about, what Miller's legal problems were in San Francisco. Those appear to have been dealt with. And remember that the Jaguars director of player personnel is Trent Baalke, who drafted Bruce back in 2011 when he was the GM of the Niners, right? And was instrumental in converting Bruce from a pass rusher to the other side of the ball as a fullback. And everyone thought that Bruce was on the verge of becoming a Pro Bowl level fullback. And he also reconnects with Doug Marrone, who we know his connections to George O'Leary. And of course, Miller was an O'Leary favorite from back in the day. So now one thing that's happening here is he's not going to block for Leonard Fournette because Leonard Fournette's gone. But I'm really intrigued. At first, he made the team, and I'm really intrigued to see how Bruce Miller looks out there as a fullback after being out of the NFL for basically an entire Olympic cycle.
I am. Other than I'll say Mike Hughes, the other corner that really needs to step up because that group is really depending on him, and I think that team, even without Stephon Diggs, can be decent this year.
He's got to stay on the field, Murph. He's got to stay on the field. He's had injury after injury. That's been his problem.
Yeah, it really is too bad. Also, because Tristan Hill is starting, I just want to see how that goes because the Cowboys do this every year. They have a lot of hype surrounding them.
They're the Super Bowl favorites out of the NFC right now, right?
And this is a guy in Tristan Hill, and he has refuted this, but there were reports last year that he fell asleep during a team speech, and it just maybe was not unlocking his full potential, which, to be fair, is something that Tristan has a track record of. Like, the talent's there, but can you get the drive and determination and competitiveness out of him? And sometimes I think that was an issue for him as a rookie. Well, he is now going to be one of their starters on the D-line, so certainly he has at least opened some eyes in camp. And going in that division with so much expectations on that team, I really looking forward to seeing what he does. And because I have a fantasy draft in 10 minutes, I'll say this. I don't think Gabe Davis is going to have a huge fantasy year. I think, look, with Don Brown and Stephon Diggs, there's only so much that can go around. I know he's looked great in camp, but it is still camp, and I think he still needs time. He'll have some big weeks, like Traquan Smith, every now and then will bust out. But I think we should not expect Gabe Davis to come out right away and put up 60 catches for 800 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Look at you, Murph. You are right back in fantasy mode, man.
Welcome back, Murph.
I have to be.
It's so good. It's like Christmas in September.
Wait, let me ask you this, Murph. Does Bruce Miller have more touchdowns this year than any Jaguar running back fill-in-the-blank starter this year?
Oh, boy.
That's a good one.
Let's see. Raquel Armstead is apparently on COVID and not going to be playing for a while. And then they have a guy, Chris Thompson, who never scores touchdowns, really. So probably not him. There's another guy, James
Robinson right now is their rookie.
I'm not drafting any Jaguars running back. So maybe, let's have fun and say yes. Yeah! Bruce Miller vultures 3 touchdowns and outscores everyone else.
Bruce Miller right now is the most experienced running back on the Jaguars depth chart, and he hasn't played in 4 years.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
So
can Nate Evans score a touchdown before a Jaguar running
back? Listen, I saw somewhere that somebody was mixing him up as a running back, and I was like, this can't be right. But man, could you imagine a Nate Evans and Bruce Miller field in Jacksonville. That would be the most fun thing. That might be their best option. I know, power running game. Doug Marrone. Let's do it, man. Come on.
Football in 2020. Bruce Miller and Nate Evans running the two-back formation.
Oh, that would be so great. Oh, please, Lord, let it happen. It would be so awesome. All right, that's where we got to end this show right now. We're going out on top. It's perfect the way it is. Remember to follow us at UCF_Banneret on Twitter and Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. Follow us individually at Jeff_Sharon, Eric Lopez Elo, and Spokes_Murphy. Of course, don't forget to follow all the rest of our staff: Danny Medina, Derek Warden, Jeremy Brenner has been outstanding with the newsletters every morning. Make sure you follow that. Make sure and subscribe. You can subscribe to us via email, of course, as always, and follow us all on Twitter as well. Just hit the Twitter link. You have a full list of us that you can follow. For all of us here at Black Gold Banneret, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thanks for listening. This has been the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. We'll catch you next week.